console power narrative. What fanboys don't want you to know, right? With the recent information about and confirmation of PlayStation 5 and its specs, the Xbox fanboy community are now trying to bring up, oh, power matters again, power matters again. And as much as we try to teach them, they are so far up Xbox ass that whatever you say is muffled. They can't hear you because the butt cheeks of Microsoft is covering their ears. Like if you look at them, the left ass cheek is on their left ear, the right ass cheek is on their right ear. They can't hear you. You know, it's almost like earplugs at this point. That's how far up Microsoft's ass they are. All right. So I'm going to explain for the people that's not up Microsoft's ass. That's not up Xbox ass. Okay. I'm going to provide you the information that these fanboys don't want you to know. You know, because remember, when they talk, when they have conversations, it's not for the sake of knowledge. It's not for the sake of just talking gaming, you know, or just, you know, talking about facts and stuff like that. That's not their intent. Their intent is for one thing only, to make Xbox look good. Even if they have to lie about it, they're going to do it, okay? That's just a reality. And that's just something you're just going to have to accept. They don't care about knowledge or just having general gaming knowledge. What they care about is manipulate information to make their box look good, no matter the situation, right? Doesn't matter what it is, okay? So here's the power narrative, all right? The power narrative was around long before Xbox even existed. Xbox came out in 2001, all right? So talking about power when a new generation, you know, comes along was happening long before Xbox One. So this is not even an Xbox. In fact, Xbox is possibly the newbies of gaming when you think about it. The Xbox Nation, y'all the newbies, all right? Y'all the most youngest out of all, okay? All right? Sega's not around, but Sega's been around, you know, there was Sega console gamers long before Xbox gamers. Hell, there was TurboGrafx 16 console gamers long before Xbox gamers, right? Everybody's been around longer than Xbox. So Xbox is the newbie. It's the new kid on the block for the most part, okay? Every generation when a new console, you know, is presented, the first thing people look at is power, right? When Nintendo jumped from Nintendo Entertainment System to Super Nintendo, it was 16-bit. You know, back in the days, everything was bits. 8-bit power, 16-bit, 32-bit, all right? These were terms long before Xbox, okay? So all you Xbox, cut it out, because this power narrative had nothing to do with y'all. It was always been around, okay? Every generation starts, the initial conversation is power. So why is the initial conversation about power, right? Because with consoles, when you're ushering a new generation, people want to see what does the new generation, next generation bring in terms of games that you couldn't do the previous generations. And many times you see big leaps. For example, I'll say this. When we went from 8-bit to 16-bit, you saw a bigger jump in graphics and sound, a huge jump, right? But then when you went from 16-bit to 32-bit, 32-bit era ushered in 3D gaming, right? When you went from Super Nintendo, Genesis to N64, PlayStation 1, you saw a huge leap with 3D gaming, all right? Super Mario set the benchmark in that. That's changes in gameplay. That's the real big thing about power, all right? It's not so much how graphically a game looks, it's gameplay changes, okay? And as the gameplay change, you notice the controllers change with it, you know, to adapt and accommodate the new gameplay styles, you know? At one point, gaming was just a joystick and one button when it all started. Okay, I ain't gonna say when it all started, but for Atari, look at their Atari controller. One button and a joystick. And then Nintendo came out with 2 buttons. Then you saw 6 buttons, 3 buttons, shoulders, you know, shoulder pads, shoulder triggers, and bumpers and all that stuff. All right? Then analog sticks, the return of analog sticks and all that. Dual analog sticks. Everything improved from generation to generation, which means the gameplay aspect improved. That is what people look forward to when it comes with power. It's not just simply graphics, you know, it's game design, right? How does the overall generation going to do in gaming? Now, it's getting harder and harder to see the differences, you know, because gaming has come a long way and gameplay and stuff like that has come a long way. So it's getting harder and harder to have those huge significant leaps in gameplay, you know, and stuff like that, okay? That happens every generation since the start. So it's not an Xbox pony thing. It's not a PlayStation versus Xbox thing. It happened with every console across every manufacturer, all right, for over 3 decades, all right? Atari, TurboGrafx 16, Sega, Nintendo, PlayStation, now Xbox, everything went across the board, in terms of power. It's a normal thing. It's a normal occurrence, okay? So why did this gen get fucked up? Again, these Xbox, they're going to make excuses, so don't listen to them. I'm going to tell you the truth, okay? Don't listen to these Xbox because, again, their concern is to protect the box under any circumstance, okay? Microsoft screwed up because they are the only company to release the most expensive console, and yet it ends up being the weakest console. You are paying $500. You had to pay $500 for a weaker product. That's like going to a car lot and the Toyota is more expensive than the BMW. That does not make sense. People were wondering, what the fuck is this about? Why is this console $500 and this console is $400? And when the question was asked, why is the Xbox $100 extra? This was the answer. Number one, the Kinect camera. It's innovation. It's supposed to do all these things. You can Skype. Nobody was interested in that bullshit. No one was interested in paying $100 for that camera just to say Xbox on. No one cared. Now, of course, they're like, oh, I can't care. Shut up. You didn't care. You're just slaving because the camera doesn't even exist anymore and you don't even talk about it. Stop it. Okay? Stop with the nonsense. Stop with the damage control. That's why Xbox looks like shit, because you guys just can't keep it real. You're like, yeah, it was a stupid idea. Sure, the idea of Xbox On sounds cool, but in practice, for $500, no, not even. That's number one. Number two, the games. Sure, they're saying, oh, we had AAA games, we had exclusive, which is true. But what games did you have? Dead Rising 3, no one gave a fuck. The franchise is so bad that the studio closed down because the games wasn't selling. Sunset Overdrive, decent game, but not a big hit among Xbox gamers. Most of you Xbox gamers didn't buy the game because you didn't want it. It wasn't interesting. Rise, do I really need to go in depth with that? Crytek sold half their studios after that game. No sequels to Rise, no sequels to Sunset Overdrive. Dead Rising, that game, the company, the developers that were doing that game, they went to shit. Capcom got rid of them. So in reality, we'll continue. Master Chief Collection, right? Good idea to remaster, but when it launched, it was a disaster. The multiplayer was a disaster. And it took them, the game launched October 2014, if I remember, right? They were still doing major patches in March 2015, because I remember in March they gave an update, say, oh, we still fix these huge issues. I'm like, God damn, it's March, and you're still fixing this shit? Another huge mistake Xbox did. This is probably the biggest mistake they did was with Titanfall. The one true probably killer app that they had, that was popular, great quality, right? Some people complain they didn't have single player story or whatever, but at least it's potentially their biggest new IP, right? And you could get it on PC and Xbox 360. So you didn't even need an Xbox One to play the game. So a lot of people didn't jump to the Xbox One to pay $500 to play Titanfall. They were just playing on their 360. And then the PC gamers, they had no incentive to buy a console to play that game because it was on their platform also. That's probably the biggest mistake Microsoft did. Right? So $500 for a weaker console, and PlayStation came out with $400 with a more powerful console. Right? That's just the reality. That's what screwed up everything. And Microsoft did not have the big AAA to overcome that. Games like Sunset Overdrive, Quantum Break, Hello Chief, Master Chief Collection, Rise, and people could say, oh, that's your opinion product. No, it's not an opinion because you can see the sales. Sales is not an opinion. The Xbox community did not buy those games. People were not jumping through the stores to buy these games. You can see the games people want to buy. Look at God of War. Look at Spider-Man. Look at Horizon Zero Dawn. You can see the reaction. It's not just shit talking. You see the results from games being bought that people actually want. Right? Now, Microsoft screwed up the power. Instead of doing the smart thing and just working with what they got, hey, we don't have the power, but where we lack in power, we're going to make up in great games. That is the focus. Because at the end of the day, that's what you need for the console. People will forgive the mistakes. Example, PlayStation 3. Completely botched the launch. $600. Sure, on paper, it's the most powerful console, but in practice, it was trash. Majority of the games were running better on 360, not because of power, but simply because Xbox 360 was a better designed console. The architecture was just better designed. It was easier. It was developer friendly. No big AAAs for the first 2 years. The first big AAA exclusive was Metal Gear Solid 4. Before that, you had decent games, but nothing to sell a $600 console. Resistance does not sell a $600 console. Motorstorm does not sell a $600 console. Heavenly Sword does not sell a $600 console. Ninja Gaiden Sigma, a remaster, does not sell $600 console. We even had always online multiplayer, Warhawk, but that will not sell a $600 console. And no one gave a damn about Blu-ray. Sony screwed it all up, okay? But instead of trying to reinvent itself by creating a whole new PlayStation with more power, new components, and whatever, no. What they did was they took the PlayStation, hell, they actually scaled it back because they took away backwards compatibility, right? They took away all those card slots, right? And they slimmed it down to make it cheaper. So it's still pretty much the same PlayStation, but with less features. No backwards compatibility, no OS install, all those multimedia card slots, all of that shit's gone. Less USB ports, all of that shit was gone. Hell, even the buttons, the original PlayStation 3 Fat, it was touch sensitive. They got rid of that and they went back to button clicking. So it was actually reduced in functionality, in form, everything. They scaled it back just to make it cheaper. But what they did, they pumped out more games. And you saw the reaction. People saw, hey, even though this PlayStation Slim is pretty much a reduced version of the PlayStation 3 Fat with less capabilities in terms of features and stuff like that, but I could get games. I can get PlayStation 3 games. A lot of PlayStation 3 exclusives are coming out like that. And that's when you started seeing more and more Japanese games coming back to PlayStation 3. And the result, people went out and bought it. To the point where Sony caught up to Xbox. At one point, Xbox 360 had an 8 million lead over PlayStation 3. That lead disappeared. Now the question is, who has the little edge by a couple 100,000, maybe a million? Xbox, PS3, that question has never been answered. But the fact that that's even a question at the end of the gen truly shows PlayStation 3 made a comeback. Not by reinventing itself with a new, more powerful console. All they did was give what people want in the first place. Games. That's it. They made the console cheaper, brought out more games. That was Microsoft's mistake. You see? The best thing another good thing Microsoft did was the release of the Xbox One S. It was actually selling good. It actually won MPD 4 months in a row. They came out with a good product, Xbox One Slim. All they had to do was provide more games. And the console would have kept selling. But no, they tried to reinvent themselves with the Xbox One X. True power, 4K power, 4 years after the generation started. At that point, no one cares. No one cares about up-resing games. Because think about it. The console launched, right, to reinvent itself, to provide 4K graphics for games. But this is the question people ask. Where are the games that you're trying to up-res, that you're trying to get to native 4K? What are the games you are creating to get to native 4K? Where are they? And they weren't around. And then the few games that did come out did not take advantage of the Xbox One X. Sea of Thieves, State of Decay 2, Voodoo Vince, Phantom Dust with original assets, Disneyland Adventures. None of these games took advantage of the Xbox One X. No one cared about power. We hit a period where everybody want the games. And the same thing's going to happen with the next generation. In the beginning, people are going to talk about power because they want to see what the conversation is for the next generation. But once that next generation starts flowing in and year after year starts pumping through, it's about the games. All right? You have Navi. Cool. Everybody's going to talk about Navi. Oh my God, Navi. Zen 2 Core, Zen 2 Core, Navi, Zen 2 Core, Navi, Zen 2 Core. 2-3 years later, after those announcements and specs have been revealed, where are the games that take advantage of Zen 2 Core and Navi? Where are they? That's the question. Understand, the beginning, people are going to talk about power because there's these promises and talk about what the next generation is going to bring, right? And then at a certain point, you have to deliver on the conversation. Deliver on what you talked about when you said you're providing this architecture. Where are the games? You know, that was Xbox's problem. They never delivered. It was too late. Xbox One X was a waste of time. Microsoft would have done better sticking with the S, right? Not even making up the Xbox One X because the Pro wasn't all that either, you know. The real moneymaker was the S. They probably could have put a little bit better hardware, just a little bit better, right? But pump out big, compelling games. That's it. The games will always win. If they would have came out with bangers that contend, you know, that are up there with the Game of the Year awards and stuff like that, big titles, 90 plus rated Metacritic that has everybody talking about it, there wouldn't be no situation. Sure, you'll have the trolls talking about whatever, more power, but the games will always win. Games will beat trolls. Great games. Not no bullshit like Rise. You ain't winning no goddamn argument with that trash ass game. Stop it. That shit ain't happening. All right? Y'all choose the weirdest hills to die on. Okay? Crackdown 3 ain't fucking doing anything. Let's be honest. Okay? And that's the story behind the power narrative that fanboys don't want you to know. In the beginning of the gen, is to talk about what these consoles are going to bring to the gen. But once the conversation's over and past that, we want to see the result. Where is the content behind this? That's it. That's how it's been for generations. For generation to generation to generation is a repetitive cycle. Right? Don't let these dudes whose sole intent is to protect Xbox for God knows what reason, because even Microsoft is not even all about their own platform the way these dudes are. Even Microsoft, Phil Spencer's telling you himself, you don't have to get an Xbox. Play where you want, it's cool. Play the games where you want to play. He's not even being this fanatical over his own product. And he's in charge of the whole goddamn shit. It's freaking weird. You know what I'm saying? But it is what it is. Let me know what you think about this video. Do you finally understand the simplicity and the basic story behind the power narrative? It's an old story. It's nothing new. But don't let these Xbox change your mind. Don't let them. You know, they only have one purpose: to make Xbox look great, despite it's the trashiest console of the gen. And that's it. It's your boy Porter Rock 77. Your only friend is YouTube streets. Hit the subscribe button if you're new to the channel, and hit the like button, retweet it throughout your favorite social media platforms. And I'm out. Peace.